Let's kick off our first story, and it's a wild one. Dricus du Plessis is in the middle of what may be one of the most extreme weight cuts we've seen all year, ahead of UFC 319. The question is, should we be concerned? Du Plessis isn't just quietly making weight, he's sending a very direct message to Khamzat Chimaev ahead of their massive middleweight title fight, vowing to break him when they finally meet inside the octagon. As fight night approaches, the South African champion is pushing his body to the absolute limit. In a recent interview with the Chicago Sports Network, du Plessis revealed something that raised eyebrows. He normally walks around at 225 to 230 pounds, yet still needs to make the middleweight limit of 185 pounds. That's an astonishing drop of 40 to 45 pounds. And here's the kicker. He plans to shed all of it in the final 10 days before weigh-ins. For anyone familiar with MMA, that kind of cut is not only physically brutal but also mentally exhausting. Still, du Plessis insists there's no need to panic. According to him, this is simply the phase of fight camp where the grind gets real. His plan is to strip away the water, weight, hit the scale, then rehydrate and step into the cage at full strength. But this cut isn't just about hitting a number. Du Plessis is determined to make a statement. In his mind, this fight is about history, about proving that the middleweight division has room for only one so-called boogeyman. And in his words, that's him. When asked about the future, du Plessis didn't hold back. He admitted that moving up to light heavyweight is part of his long-term vision and has already set his sights on potential blockbuster matchups. He even mentioned that facing the winner of Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev would be one of the most exciting fights possible for him in 2025. For now, though all focus is on Khamzat Chimaev, du Plessis was clear in his assessment. He's a special fighter, incredibly good, but I can't wait. This win for me will be history. I'm going out there to shock the world again, just like every other time people said it was impossible. Not this guy, not against him, but I'm going to show you. You're going to see the boogeyman. You're going to watch him break. You're going to see him realize there's only one boogeyman, and that's me. In the middleweight division, there can be only one boogeyman, and it will be me. Whether you view this as supreme confidence or calculated mind games, one thing is certain. Du Plessis is stepping into UFC 319 with a chip on his shoulder and a point to prove. Combine that with such an intense weight cut and the already massive stakes, and this fight is shaping up to be one of the most compelling storylines heading into fight week. Before we move to the next update, we'd like to ask for your support. If you're enjoying our coverage, please take a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We've got breaking news out of Brazil. UFC Rio finally has its main event locked in. Fan favorite Charles Oliveira is making an unexpectedly quick turnaround and is officially set to face striking sensation Revaled Fiziev on October 11. Oliveira, this isn't just another fight, it's a long-awaited homecoming. This will mark the first time in more than 5 years that Du Bronx steps into the octagon on Brazilian soil. The announcement came directly from Oliveira via Instagram, and the excitement from his supporters was immediate. Fans from across the country flooded the comments with messages like "Welcome home, champ," and "The King returns to Brazil." But make no mistake, Oliveira is approaching this fight with a very different mindset than usual. That's because he's still processing the lessons from his recent loss to Ilia Topuria, a defeat that surprised many but also became a valuable learning experience. Rather than making excuses, Oliveira has taken full responsibility for the result. Speaking with Thunderpick, he explained exactly what went wrong, showing nothing but humility in his reflection. "Sometimes we try to prove something we don't need to prove," Oliveira admitted. "I trained so many different things for that. Fight calf kicks, 1-2s takedown entries, combinations into high kicks, all of it. But when the fight started, I threw it all out the window. I just wanted to show off my hands. I believed too much in my knockout power and kept waiting for that perfect shot. He was way faster because I was just standing there waiting for one punch." It was a rare moment of complete honesty from a fighter of Oliveira's caliber. He acknowledged that ego and overconfidence had dictated his approach, causing him to abandon the strategic plan he and his team had spent weeks perfecting. His game plan worked better. His timing was better. His punch landed before mine. It was his night, and he deserves all the respect in the world, Oliveira continued. "Meanwhile, I was waiting for something I should never have waited for. I should have moved, but I didn't. I didn't do anything I trained for. I just stood in front of him and paid the price." For Oliveira, that price wasn't just a loss on his record, it was a harsh reminder that even the most experienced fighters can be undone by the heat of the moment. But instead of letting it break him, he's using it as fuel. "That's why I went home, stayed close to my family, and went right back to training. There's still so much to prove, so much to do," he said. Now, With UFC Rio just around the corner, Oliveira has the chance to redeem himself in front of his home crowd against a dangerous opponent in Rafael Fiziev. Known for his explosive striking and relentless pace, Fiziev presents a completely different challenge, one that will force Oliveira to stay disciplined and sharp. For Brazilian fans, this fight is more than just a main event, it's a redemption story. And for Charles Oliveira, it's an opportunity to prove that the lessons from his last setback have made him even more dangerous when the lights shine brightest. Chael Sonnen is back in the headlines, and, as always, he isn't holding back. This time, the former UFC title challenger is setting his sights on one of the biggest upcoming bouts on the calendar. The rematch between Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev at UFC 320. According to Sonnen, there's a major problem. Nobody actually wants to see this fight. And when he says nobody, he means it literally. Speaking with MMA Junkie, Sonnen delivered one of his trademark rants. Nobody asked for this rematch. You didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for it. You couldn't go to Twitter. You couldn't go to Google. You couldn't even get Brock to show you one person who asked for this fight, Sonnen said. His point is straightforward. While both fighters are undeniably elite, the matchup doesn't have fans buzzing. In his view, the first fight didn't leave enough unanswered questions to justify running it back so soon. But Sonnen didn't stop there. He used the opportunity to push an idea he's been championing for months. Alex Pereira, moving up to heavyweight. Still wish Alex would become a heavyweight, Sonnen said. There's not another fight at 205 that I want to see for him. He clearly wants to be a heavyweight. He's even putting that story out there on his Instagram, posting pictures of himself on the scale at 246 pounds. Sending the message, I'm big enough. I want to do this. Never one to shy away from blunt honesty mixed with a touch of humor, Sonnen questioned the UFC's reasoning. Why do we have to get him beat twice? Why risk him taking another loss at light heavyweight when there's a whole new division waiting for him? For Sonnen, the logic is simple. Pereira has already proven he can compete with the best at 205 pounds. So moving up would not only provide a fresh challenge, but also open the door to blockbuster fights from Tom Aspinall and Sergey Pavlovich. 2. Even a returning John Jones. The intrigue, Sonnen argues, would be through the roof. From the UFC's standpoint, however, the rematch aligns with their best versus best philosophy. Dana White has repeatedly said, this is what we do here. Ankalaev remains one of the most consistent and technically sharp fighters in the division, while Pereira's explosive striking makes him a threat to anyone. On paper, it's a clash of styles with the potential for high-level action. Still, Sonnen's criticism taps into a broader sentiment among certain fans that the UFC sometimes prioritizes rankings and immediate rematches over creating fresh, exciting matchups fans didn't even know they wanted. Love him or hate him, Sonnen has a gift for voicing thoughts others may be reluctant to say out loud. Whether you agree with him or not, his take has already sparked debates across MMA forums, podcasts, and social media. While UFC 320's co-main event is locked in, the conversation about Alex Pereira's future is far from settled. And if Sonnen gets his way, the next time Potin steps into the octagon, it will be against a heavyweight giant, not another light heavyweight contender. Khamzat Chimaev still has his sights set on something unprecedented in UFC history, becoming a triple champion. Not double champ status, triple champ status. Speaking with ESPN MMA, Chimaev outlined his vision, and it's nothing short of audacious. He's considering dropping back down to welterweight to face the winner of Jack Della Maddalena versus Islam Makhachev, or moving up to light heavyweight to take on the winner of Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira. I'm working with my new coach, Coach Charles Chimaev said. We talked about going back down to my first fights at 17, he said. Give me a couple months and we'll make it happen. For those who remember Chimaev's early UFC run, welterweight was where he made his name bulldozing opponents with freakish strength while barely seeming affected by the weight cut. Since moving up, many assumed 170 pounds was no longer possible for him. Not so. According to Chimaev, I don't even know who the champ is there right now. The Australian guy, yeah, that would be a good fight for me. I could take that belt, he said, referring to Jack Della Maddalena, who is set to face Islam Makhachev in one of the year's most anticipated champion versus champion clashes. If Chimaev's prediction comes true, that winner could be staring down one of the most physically dominant fighters the UFC has ever seen. But Chimaev's ambitions don't stop there. He's also got his eye on light heavyweight gold. If I go up Ankalaev or Alex, whoever wins I can fight for that belt too, he declared. In his mind, the roadmap is clear. Win or defend middleweight gold, cut back to welterweight for another title, then bulk up to challenge at 205. 3 belts, 3 divisions. A feat that would not only make him an all-time great, but possibly the most versatile and fearless champion the UFC has ever seen. Of course, talk is one thing. Making 170 pounds again after years away from the division is a major challenge. And moving up to face a powerhouse like Alex Pereira or a technical assassin like Magomed Ankalaev is no easy leap. but this is Khamzat Chimaev, a fighter who's made a career out of turning impossible matchups into decisive victories. Whether he can pull it off remains to be seen. One thing is certain, Chimaev isn't short on ambition. With a new coach, a renewed training focus, and a proven ability to shine under the brightest lights, counting him out would be a mistake. So while UFC 319 will determine if he truly is the middleweight boogeyman killer, don't be surprised if his post-fight call-out isn't for just one belt but for two more. Tensions are rising between Plessis-Muhammad and du Plessis after a fiery exchange earlier this week. Appearing on the Ariel Helwani show, du Plessis didn't hold back when discussing Belal's welterweight title loss to Jack Della Maddalena. "I was watching the fight just to see him lose. That was literally it," du Plessis said. "I think he's an absolute, well, let's just say I was really happy to see it. That tweet I made, I had it typed out before the fight even started. All I had to do was hit copy and paste. Done. Pretty savage." Belal wasn't about to let that slide. Jumping on his YouTube channel, he fired back with a sharp response. "I heard du Plessis is in Chicago. Bro, this is my city. We've got a big card next week, huge main event and if you need anything, food, groceries, a therapist, a cage, a gym, a sauna, make sure you don't hit me up. You're not welcome here. Chicago. If you see him, let him know you don't like his kind." This isn't just playful trash talk anymore, it's personal. With both men known for their relentless energy and unfiltered words, it begs the question, are we witnessing the early stages of a genuine grudge match? If so, expect fireworks. Moving on to another major headline, there's been some serious behind-the-scenes drama surrounding Khamzat Chimaev's fight at UFC 319, and it nearly changed the entire card. Former double champion and current UFC commentator Daniel Cormier recently revealed on the Good Guy, Bad Guy show that just 2 months ago, Chimaev's middleweight title bout with du Plessis was hanging by a thread. 2 months ago, I got a call saying Khamzat was probably going to be out of this fight. Cormier said, "We're a week out now, and obviously it's happening. But back then they were asking me who should fight du Plessis. Instead, should it be that kid from France at 185 Nasruddin Imavov, or should it be Caio Borrajo? But in the end, it was always going to be Khamzat. He was going to make that walk." Think about that for a moment. UFC 319 was built around the highly anticipated middleweight title clash between du Plessis and Chimaev matchup. The promotion has been hyping for months. If Khamzat had pulled out, Imavov or Borrajo could have stepped in as last-minute replacements. Both are dangerous, up-and-coming middleweights, but the fight would have been entirely different, and it certainly wouldn't have carried the boogeyman versus boogeyman storyline that makes this matchup so compelling. The fact that Chimaev pushed through whatever issues had him on the brink of withdrawal speaks volumes. Whether it was injury, illness, or something else entirely, Cormier didn't share details. What matters is that Khamzat stayed the course, and now, just days away from fight night, the matchup fans have been waiting for is locked in. This revelation adds yet another layer to the mental warfare heading into UFC 319. Du Plessis has been undergoing a grueling weight cut, vowing openly to break Chimaev. Now we know there was a point when Khamzat's participation was in doubt. A fact du Plessis has almost certainly heard and will use as fuel. On the flip side, for Chimaev, it's one more reason to make a statement. Fighters hate having their commitment questioned, and if Cormier's account is true, Khamzat may step into the cage with something extra to prove not just to du Plessis, but to the fans. From massive weight cuts to rematch controversies and trash talk spilling across multiple divisions, UFC 319 is shaping up to be electric. These aren't just headlines, they're the kind of stories that keep MMA fans glued to every interview, every post, every cryptic tweet. If du Plessis wins, he cements himself as the undisputed middleweight king and potentially earns a shot at light heavyweight gold. If Chimaev wins, his dream of becoming a triple champion remains alive, with his name still in the mix at welterweight and light heavyweight. But before we start fantasy booking, what's next? There's this fight to get through, a fight that, according to Daniel Cormier, almost never happened. Now, it's here. The stakes couldn't be higher, and both men are walking in with pressure, pride, and personal grudges on the line. One thing's for sure, when the cage door closes at UFC 319, history won't just be made, it will be earned. Khamzat Chimaev still has his sights set on something unprecedented in UFC history, becoming a triple champion. Not double champ status, triple champ status. Speaking with ESPN MMA, Chimaev outlined his vision, and it's nothing short of audacious. He's considering dropping back down to welterweight to face the winner of Jack Della Maddalena versus Islam Makhachev, or moving up to light heavyweight to take on the winner of Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira. "I'm working with my new coach, Coach Charles Chimaev said. We talked about going back down to my first fights at 17, he said. Give me a couple months and we'll make it happen." For those who remember Chimaev's early UFC run, welterweight was where he made his name bulldozing opponents with freakish strength while barely seeming affected by the weight cut. Since moving up, many assumed 170 pounds was no longer possible for him. Not so. According to Chimaev, I don't even know who the champ is there right now. The Australian guy, yeah, that would be a good fight for me. I could take that belt, he said, referring to Jack Della Maddalena, who is set to face Islam Makhachev in one of the year's most anticipated champion versus champion clashes. If Chimaev's prediction comes true, that winner could be staring down one of the most physically dominant fighters the UFC has ever seen. But Chimaev's ambitions don't stop there. He's also got his eye on light heavyweight gold. If I go up Ankalaev or Alex, whoever wins I can fight for that belt too, he declared. In his mind, the roadmap is clear. Win or defend middleweight gold, cut back to welterweight for another title, then bulk up to challenge at 205. 3 belts, 3 divisions. A feat that would not only make him an all-time great, but possibly the most versatile and fearless champion the UFC has ever seen. Of course, talk is one thing. Making 170 pounds again after years away from the division is a major challenge. And moving up to face a powerhouse like Alex Pereira or a technical assassin like Magomed Ankalaev is no easy leap. But this is Khamzat Chimaev, a fighter who's made a career out of turning impossible matchups into decisive victories. Whether he can pull it off remains to be seen. One thing is certain, Chimaev isn't short on ambition. With a new coach, a renewed training focus, and a proven ability to shine under the brightest lights, counting him out would be a mistake. So while UFC 319 will determine if he truly is the middleweight boogeyman killer, don't be surprised if his post-fight call-out isn't for just 1 belt but for 2 more.